Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Brave Maker Film Fest online chat. This is Tony Gapistone coming at you from Redwood City, California. And in this time of shelter in place, it's a really cool honor and privilege to be able to talk with the Brave Makers who are part of our film festival online community. So many of you know, those of you who don't, we had a film fest that was scheduled to go into effect here in Redwood City, May 15 to 17. Obviously, the whole world is put on pause. So like every other organization, we're trying to figure out how can we still engage in these great conversations about justice, diversity, inclusion? How can we still elevate brave artists who are telling their stories, who are making their movies and putting them out into the world? So we've figured out a way with some great new platform that we're using called StreamYard. We're able to bring in filmmakers and do some Q&R. We call it question and response time. If you're joining on live, feel free to share this so that more people can find out about the two filmmakers we're going to talk about today, as well as their films. So we're really honored to be able to host people's films through an online screening platform. Basically, it's just through Vimeo. Most of them are being put out. If they're public, we share their public links. If they're not, the filmmakers are giving us the gift of a password protected link, and they can only be found by our email list if they're not public. So we have a lot of films this week that just went live that can only be accessed through our patron subscriber email that you can find at bravemaker.com/buzz. But let me bring on our two filmmakers all the way from New York City and from LA to introduce themselves. They are the filmmakers who created short films 99 and Sweater, Nick Borenstein, as well as filmmaker Giovannie Espiritu, who created Alley 3000. So welcome to the Brave Maker Film Fest online chat.
Thanks.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Nick, why don't you start? Give us a little shout out. Tell us what life is like in New York City and how you're dealing with this shelter in place.
Yeah, I mean, life is different, to say the least. Some things have changed, but all things considered, I'm hanging in there. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York, and it's a very different city than I'm used to in terms of the vibrant sort of outdoor lifestyle that we live in New York, especially in the spring. This is usually the time when New Yorkers thrive and come alive. My favorite time in New York is when, people sort of first feel the warmth and immediately take off all their clothes and go into the park. And sadly, we aren't really doing that right now. But
so no nakedness in New York right now. Bummer.
It's the worst. But I think that, obviously New Yorkers are incredibly resilient as much of the rest of the world. But certainly we feel the community with each other. Every night at 7 p.m. we clap and sort of support our healthcare workers on the front lines. And, I'm sort of doing the best that I can in terms of, being home, staying home, doing as much as I can at home, cooking a lot. I'm working as much as I can. I'm, doing yoga. My boyfriend lives in Spain, so he and I are spending a lot of time together virtually. My friends, I'm keeping in touch with them. So as much as possible, just, trying to use this time really for what feels right. And I think that that's been a real sort of guiding light in terms of a lot of this. So tricky times, but hoping to do the best that I can during it.
Right on. Well, thanks for being here, Nick. It's great to see your face.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Giovannie, give us your update from LA.
So yeah, life is really, really different right now. I am actually, my coping mechanisms is that I do a lot of breathing,
Yes.
and do a lot of aromatherapy breathing. And I realize, just taking in a breath, how lucky I am, especially because the whole COVID thing takes away breath. And I'm we don't really, we're not really grateful for that because we think it's so abundant, which it is, and just being grateful for just the little tiny things. I'm taking a lot of hot showers, and I am being really gentle with myself during this time. I know there's this big push to be you got to be productive. There was that thing going on Instagram where it's you never lack time, you just lack the discipline. And I'm that is so messed up. We're all going through a collective trauma right now. We need to be gentle with ourselves and do what Nick says, do what feels right. Take the time to kind of slow down, reestablish those connections with people, even if it's just on FaceTime and Zoom. I'm trying, it's really hard to, talk to my kid every single day. He moved out like a year ago, so it's like empty nesting in my 30s, which is blowing my mind. But I'm trying to like still like connect with him and just check in, like, are you safe? Are you feeling healthy? But yeah, it's a weird time, and you just got to be gentle with yourself.
Both of you, thank you for that. I mean, it's a great reminder for those of us who are watching right now, is just taking care of ourselves, doing what we need to do to get through. I think you're right. As creative people, who most of us like are freelancers, and we don't have the benefit of getting salary all the time, and or benefits like healthcare. So being able to feel like we can take care of ourselves by just breathing and doing yoga or whatever, like, it's super important. Like, all we have is today. Let's just get through today. And I love that you emphasize the breathing part, because I think that is like, it's a simple thing. We can't control the pandemic. We can't control what's happening or how our leaders handle it, but we can control this body, this mind, so that's really good stuff. If you're just tuning in, welcome. My name is Tony Gapistone. I see some people already commenting, and I'll invite you to do that throughout the live chat here. If you have seen Sweater in 99 or Alley 3000, which we're going to get into in a second, feel free to post some questions. If you haven't, you can scroll up to the top of the live feed, and you could come back in 5 or 10 minutes after you watch 1 or 2 or 3 of them. But I already see people. Robertino is giving a bunch of emojis. Yes, we see you. I got Christina Jackson, who says, hey, loving this virtual film fest action. Christina, thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Aaron Felton says, woo, Nick. So hey, we love it. We're very happy to have all of you joining us. So thank you so much for that. So let's get into... Before we talk about your films, I like hearing people's backstories, and I know a little bit about both of you. Nick, why don't you just start out how you got into becoming a filmmaker? And you're so much more than that. You're a writer and a director and an actor and a dancer. If you saw The Sweater, oh my gosh! So just share your backstory, your origin story, if you will.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in LA, oddly had no relationship to the entertainment industry, but, kind of knew that I loved storytelling. I knew that I loved performance. I acted when I was younger. But when I went to college, I sort of specifically focused on sort of the business of film and television, and really found myself in the realm of producing. And it was a world that I really loved. But I always knew that I had a voice that I wanted to share, and that there were stories that I wanted to share, oftentimes very personal stories. And that sort of allowed me to, with my sort of experience in producing, sort of led me down the path of writing sort of my own work. And I would films when I could over the weekends with friends and loved ones, and sort of with any resource that I could. And that eventually sort of gave way to having more confidence in making my own work, and sort of balancing the producing work I was doing with my own filmmaking. And, Sweater and 99 were sort of this sort of labor of love that came at a sort of the end of a really exciting journey of really sort of committing to my filmmaking and knowing that it was something that I really wanted to do. And, both those films came really sort of naturally in a weird way. Like, I wrote Sweater really as just like let me explore this relationship between a mother and her son. And then very soon after that, I was like, I want to dance in something. So basically, gave myself the opportunity to, create something that would allow me to be dancing and sort of be my own music video in a certain way. So, I think it felt really nice to be able to make something that felt really something that was my own after, many years of producing other people's work, to sort of really go out in the world and dance in a massive cafe with 15 background dancers and a beautiful, wonderful woman named Betty, who you're watching right now, who killed it.
Yeah.
Yep. There we go.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
I love that music. That whole scene is so great. It gets me going. And a $9 coffee. I mean, that is so good. We'll dive into that. But that's cool. Thanks for giving us your backstory there. I think that's a important. Just what I hear you saying is that recognizing you need to tell your stories. I think something that I learned as well in my own journey is I kind of waited around hoping somebody was going to pick me, you know, put me in their film, make my dreams come true. And it never really happened. And I had to really kind of make brave. I like the phrase brave my own way into the industry by, you know, like elbowing my way in there and making stuff and finding my tribe and my crew. So I think that's really cool. That was a part of your story too. I love hearing that kind of thing. Giovanni, how about you? Your backstory, how'd you get involved? I know you did a lot of acting. You were on ER.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So yeah, I was an actor first, and kind of weird getting into the acting thing. So I was in a cult, and then I talked to a lot of telemarketers, and the telemarketer was like, "You have a really weird voice. You should get into voiceover." And then that's how I got into voiceover, which is how I got into acting.
Can I clarify that you were actually in a cult? And I don't want that to be glossed over, because when you just told me that, it was a revelation.
Yeah, so I was in a cult, and I was actually in the mountains learning survival techniques, because we were all preparing for like the second coming of Christ, and the only people that I would talk to were telemarketers from the outside world. And so I would try to talk to them for as long as possible. I know that's really sad, but one of them said that you have a really interesting voice, and I didn't even know what voiceovers was, and I looked it up on the interwebs. The first agency that I saw was Stars Agency in San Francisco. I sent a really stupid recording to them. They called me in. I got signed with the agency, so they sent me on my first job, and I ended up booking it and working it. And I was like, oh my God, it's a sign from God, you know, that I need to get into this. So that's how I started acting.
Giovanni, were you like the original Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt? Is that, was that based on your life?
People have said that, and you know, it's like, I took this test that was like, what fictional characters do you as a human being, you know, resemble? And it was actually Erin from The Office. So the lady that plays, you know, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Yeah, like that is my essence, and I totally get it. But yeah, like I can very much relate to her path.
Hey, everybody's got a different break-in story. That's quite the break-in story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As I started, like how I started as Filmmakers, you know, I started doing like little shorts every now and again, but I was primarily an actor. And then I moved to LA 4 years ago, and I was just like, you know, the roles that are being given to people of color and also women, you know, there's not a lot of them. And so in order to create the career that I wanted, I realized that I needed to write. And also I wanted to write stories that didn't have, you know, the person of color as like the sidekick, you know, like it was more about, you know, their journey, and also I get angry, and I found that when I get angry, the best way for me to channel it is through writing. So instead of like taking it out on people in the industry, which I know you can be blacklisted for or whatever, it's like, you know, no, just create your own story and try to make it happen on your own, and stop asking for permission, like Tony said.
And you in LA have started an acting school, you do coaching. So not only are you kind of pursuing your own journey, you're also helping other people do that as well, which I think is really great. So if you're in the LA area, you can look up
anywhere nationwide.
Okay,
actually, I teach nationwide. So yeah.
And now nobody can really go into a classroom anyway. So that's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's jump in. So we're getting more people who are chiming in. We got Christina who says loved sweater.
Oh, thank you, Christina.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about where that story came from and how any details you want to share about the making of it.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm a dancer and a huge dance fan. Notice my Alvin Ailey shirt that I'm wearing right now, because I honestly had to rep Ailey and dance, because dance is a wonderful thing. And I danced when I was younger, and I knew that it was a big part of my life, but I hadn't really like integrated it into my filmmaking. It was kind of like this thing that I just like did because it made me like feel cool and sexy, but like it wasn't really a part of my like work. And so, you know, similarly to sort of what I was saying earlier, like I just knew that I wanted dance to be a part of a film of mine. And I knew that there was sort of an opportunity to show dance as like an emotional expression. I oftentimes think about, you know, when you like eat something really good and you kind of like dance around because it like tastes so good, or like, you know, you just have some sort of like an emotional experience. And your body just reacts to it. I sort of thought about that in terms of like emotional experiences. And at the time I was like going on really awful dates and like Tinder dates, every type of date. And I just was like feeling really like judged and feeling really like not accepted. And I sort of was thinking about how sort of that passing experience with someone else can make you feel like really rejected, and sort of how rejection sort of can make you feel all sorts of different things. At the beginning of the film, you know, he's about to have a date and is basically like brutally rejected. And sort of throughout the course of his day, he just realizes that, you know, he doesn't really need the acceptance of someone else. He really just needs it within himself. And so I thought that would be a really fun way to show movement, to show dance, to show some humor. And it was a blast. I mean, it was so fun to make that film. We shot it in a day. You know, I worked with an amazing group of dancers. I worked with a really talented choreographer named Tiana Hester. And, you know, I to this day have been so inspired about how dance can be infused into narrative film, because, you know, I felt like there was always like musicals, which are amazing, but a very specific sort of, you know, sometimes cheesy style. Then you have music videos, which can be like also amazing, but have no story and no narrative. So with Sweater, I just wanted to sort of be like a really sort of comprehensive arc, but then could sort of, you know, showcase some dance throughout it. And since making that film, dance is continuously something that I want to integrate into my work. And I'm so glad you agree, Jessica. That's awesome. You know, I made that film to be joyful, and I'm glad that people have felt that as well.
Awesome. We have Robertino who said he was ready to get down and shake. Giovannie, how about for you?
Yes.
Where did your idea come from for Ally 3000?
For Ally 3000?
Ally, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. She says it's ally, which is also like a play on words in it. It honestly came from anger.
Oh, I never made that. I never made that connection.
Yeah, if you watch it again, once you know what happens at the end, there are little things in
That's
there.
Good. That's good.
But I don't want to like ruin the ending for people, so I'm not going to talk about that. But it honestly came from anger. Like I have constantly been talked over, and also people don't take my ideas seriously. And if somebody that is in, you know, then I'll just say somebody that's a white male presents it, it gets more, it's taken more seriously. Like there's been situations where I was producing a short film about zombies, and I hired a director and I hired the editor. I hired the director who hired the editor, and the editor wouldn't make the change that I wanted on the film until a male who was from a different film came into the room and like kind of vouched for me. And I was just like, seriously? Like, why is this happening? And just like, once I moved to LA and seeing that happen over and over again, it just kind of came to this place where I was like, okay, so if I could have the perfect ally, what would that look like? If I could have somebody that would, you know, kind of like bring the conversation back to the people that are disenfranchised, or the people that have been talked over, or haven't been given the mic. That's kind of where the idea came from.
That's cool. We at Brave Maker are really trying to position ourselves as a people who learn. And obviously for myself, being in a majority culture space, where I found like I'm way convicted on how much I have been ignorant and missed opportunities and trampled over women in meetings and not been sensitive or compassionate to the LGBTQ plus community. So these little stories, and they're not so little. I mean, they're short. They're each 5 minutes, which is so cool. I love you packed a lot, both of you, into 5 short-minute films. But there is a lot that's layered in there. And I think one of the reasons why we wanted to select your films is because they do make us think. They do make us talk about these hard topics. And they do, I think for me, cause me to have to say, you know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that even in my best attempts, sometimes I really have caused pain and disenfranchise people. And I love that you do it through this really great satirical Silicon Valley type way. What's been some of the response? Let me pass out some more compliments. Giovannie is a rock star.
That's
and
my
amazing
lead
to work
actress.
with.
She's my lead.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for
great.
being here, Leticia. Yeah. We also have Brian, who said, loved your story and loved working with you years ago to tell a story on film. Such a talent. It's awesome.
He's the first director I worked with, actually.
Right
Very
on.
first.
Right
Yeah.
on. Brian, thanks for being here. Christina says growth. So yeah, I'd love to hear you share just a little bit about, you know, being a woman in the industry. What are some of, obviously there's a lot of challenges. What are some things that you have grown? Obviously you're telling these types of stories to sort of poke at the bear, to poke at the monster. And I love that. We need more of that. So what are some of the things that are more inspiring you? This came from anger. Are there more stories you're wanting to tell?
Oh, totally. So many more. Yeah. And I just want to give you like props too, because you are an ally. You are amplifying the conversation, which is, you know, like, thank you. And there's, you know, when we know better, we do better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Like, honestly.
I appreciate that.
I do have other stories that I want to tell. I like martial arts action films, so I definitely going to do something in that realm with, you know, feminism. I have something up my sleeve, but also I have a feature film that I'm trying to get off the ground called Disgraced, which is a very loose retelling of me coming out of the church and coming out. And Rain Dove is attached to that. And, you know, like, I don't know how that's going to happen, but I trust in this big, greater energy. I still believe in like a goodness out there and something that like drives our life, but like it'll figure it out. It'll figure itself out, I feel.
Can you both, I know you both were a part of Outfest, and you are obviously speaking and telling stories in the LGBTQ community. Just share about what, like, guys, I feel like we're at a really cool space. And again, this is me on the outside of that, but seeing stories where they are not just marginalized to the gay best friend or the sassy, you know, supporting actor role. There are really cool queer stories and queer characters that are at the center that are driving narratives. So I'd love you to speak on that at all, especially Nick, both of your films, Sweater and 99. Maybe we can talk about Sweater being that's a part of your story with the mom character and identifying as LGBT in that story. Why don't you go ahead and start, Nick, just about being a queer storyteller?
Yeah, I mean, my queerness and my identity is a big part of who I am, but I think all of my stories are meant to be human stories. You know, it's really important to me that, you know, people who may not, you know, identify as queer or LGBTQ can still relate and connect to the stories that I tell. You know, in both films, his sexuality is who he is, and it's a part of him, and it's referenced, but it's not the only force. You know, it's not the main event. In 99, you know, that's a film about a mother and her adult son, and just kind of like the complexity of, you know, what that relationship between parents and their children is as you get older and as they develop lives of their own. And in fact, the conflict there has nothing to do about his sexuality or who he loves, but rather it's about, you know, their dynamic and some other issues that she's endeavoring with. And, you know, I love that ability. You know, oftentimes these films have been really well accepted, and I'm so grateful for the love that they've been getting in the sort of the queer festival circuit, but they're also, you know, widely received in sort of non-queer festivals as well. And I think that's, you know, I think a really exciting testament to just the ability that all storytellers can tell stories that can be accepted and seen by anyone and related to. You know, in this film, you know, anyone can sort of relate to that relationship. We all have parents to varying degrees. And, you know, I think that's something that, you know, family dynamics are completely universal. And, you know, I think the same thing is how I felt about making Sweater, you know, rejection and sort of acceptance of self and self-love is also an incredibly universal theme. So with both of those films, you know, I really went into them telling stories that were personal to me, and that's sort of where I started. And obviously the complexities of each of them are specific to my experiences, but the goal was really that, you know, regardless of your background, regardless of your sort of any sort of socioeconomic or sort of cultural backgrounds, you could still relate to these very human experiences, I hope.
Yeah, well, I definitely did. If you're just tuning in, my name is Tony Gappistone. I am the executive director of the Brave Maker Film Festival. We're in the Bay Area. I'm with New York filmmaker Nick Borenstein, the writer, director, star of 99 and Sweater, which are available right now to be screened on our social media, as well as our patrons through our subscriber list, as well as LA filmmaker Giovannie Espiritu with Ally 3000. So if you have not watched those films, please go there. It's up in the chat or in the post of this live chat. You can find those. And I just want to say, yeah, thank you to both of you for giving your time today. If you're watching, we are taking questions and comments. I think Robertino is calling me out. Did I say you wanted to get down to 99? I might have messed that up. He said he wanted to get down to Sweater. That's what I think he was trying to say. And he enjoyed what's Cinco? Is that another film you did? 5 Inco?
Yes, Robertino. Wow, I'm so honored that you did a little deep dive. Yeah, well, I think Cinco was actually a project that evolved after I made Sweater 99. Cinco is actually a dance piece, a live dance piece that I staged in Mexico City when I did an artist residency down there. And I'm so glad you liked it and watched it. It's something that is not necessarily a polished film by any means. It was something that I staged when I went down to Mexico City to take part in this amazing, amazing residency called Casa Lu. And, what ended up happening is I went there to sort of write this feature that I'm working on. And what transpired was sort of this other artistic experience that was really a dance piece. And I think sort of an extension of, the experience I had making Sweater. Because again, I just felt so compelled by the idea that dance can be a narrative unto itself. And the reason that piece was called Cinco, which means 5 in Spanish, is because I wanted the piece to really tackle the 5 stages of grief. The way that I experience the Mexican culture of grieving and death and, especially around Dia de Muertos and just kind of that culture. I was so inspired by that and really wanted to sort of explore that realm. And that's where Cinco came from. And it was a really wild dance piece. The residency where we lived was an all glass home. And so if it was gorgeous. If you were in the backyard, you could just basically see into the entire home. So I sort of lit 5 different spaces and sort of meandered through each of those spaces and sort of tackled a different stage of grief. So very different, super fun. But it was a blast. And that's on my Vimeo page as well. If any of you guys want to check it out as well, it's for all the dance lovers out there.
Right on. Christina says your shorts were refreshingly relatable.
Oh, thank you so much, Christina.
Christina also says, "Oh my gosh, I love Rain Dove."
They're amazing.
You've got a fan already. That's fantastic. Jessica says, "I love that these filmmakers were paired together in the chat. All 3 films can touch so many viewers on many different levels. Kudos, great work, Giovannie and Nick. Thank you for your hard work for sure." So I'd love to have you both too to share about that. Like, we do have a lot of people in our community who are making their films. We have 3 different fiscally sponsored projects right now, people who are working on their first short, some of them, one first feature, but just things, any like thoughts you would share. And we'll start with you, Giovannie, just about making your projects. How did you go about raising the money? It's all of those tough things, right? You're still doing it, but anything you want to say, tips, tricks.
Like all of my work so far has been just really super low budget, like ridiculously low budget, because I only work with what I have access to. The film that I had in Outfest that was at the same time at Nick's, it was literally just me in front of the camera because that's all I had. It's a different film. And then like with Ally 3000, that was made for less than $1,000, like all in all. And you could see it like in the quality of it, in that like it's not like super top notch, but like I just try to do what I can with what I have and try to write surrounding that. And I'm okay with embracing the sucking of it. So just getting it out there and like being okay with it. Like it's not like super amazing, but it's like it's I will get better, and allowing myself like the thing to like, okay, I'm gonna put this out there, and I know the next project that I can do will be better than this, and I'll continue to grow. So it is about the hashtag growth,
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And Giovannie, watching Ally 3000, I loved it because it is so smart and so funny and so poignant, but it's also done in a way that doesn't need special effects. It's so based on just the quality of the work. And I think about my work in a very similar way. Like Sweater, and 99. We shot those both in a day. I mean, Sweater
Wow.
is in one location, same with 99. And, you know, when you're able to sort of create a world that doesn't require a ton, and granted, like, the short space is great for that exact reason, because you can tell a short story and not need a ton of locations, not need a ton of talent and all that stuff. But, you know, I have loved what shorts have done for me as an artist, just in my ability to like get better and to like understand what it is that I like about the work, what it is that I don't like about the work. You know, I think that I have learned how much I really do love wearing all of those hats, which, you know, I'm sure, Giovannie, you can relate to, like, also makes a cheaper budget. You know, I don't have to pay myself as the lead actor or as the director. And hopefully that changes for this feature. But, you know, I think that it's been really great to have the space to use short film as an opportunity to get better and to explore things that are interesting to us as makers.
It's fantastic. I love that. I think the age-old write what you know is something to shout out here. So write something that's obviously personal to you. Right now, we're all in our homes. Can you write something in your house? Can you write, you know, when we get out of here, write a location that you know you can get. I think part of the challenge I had to overcome, you know, back in the day was recognizing I was writing things that I had to, like, you know, either pay for or get money to make, as opposed to, like, I love that. Thank you for sharing transparently the budget of a Live 3000, because that's really huge. Shoestring budgets are challenging, but it's also widely inspirational, as Christina is saying here, and that's how you learn too. And I'm just echoing what Nick said too. You didn't need to have major visual effects. You had a little bit of the, you know, all of a sudden, oh, we can see. It didn't have to be like Star Wars level effects, like that kind of stuff. I think that's really innovative. And as a filmmaker, you also have to be an entrepreneur and a business person and a creative person. So you're doing all that kind of stuff. I think that's really, really good. Good advice, right?
And one thing I just wanted to add too is, like, you know, I think during the writing process, one thing that I found really valuable is, like, write what feels good. Like, I think we oftentimes feel like we need to write this like opus, or, you know, we have to do something meaningful, or we sort of put on all of these layers of what our writing should be to other people. And I think especially during this time, you know, what has felt so good is writing stuff that, like, could make maybe no sense to anyone else but ourselves. Like, I've been like journaling a lot, and that feels so great. And that's writing, you know what I mean? Like, I've considered that a part of my writing process. And, you know, as I just wrote this feature, like, it also allows me to go back to it with like a new lens. And, you know, I love the feature, and I think I've loved it more the more like care that I've given it. And I think that oftentimes as writers, we get so caught up in a deadline or the finality of it. And I think sometimes the best part is just the writing of it, even as challenging as that is, because it's super challenging. I almost just said hella challenging, Tony, which I'm sure you'd appreciate.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Guys, I'm from Southern California though, so like we can't be going around saying the word hella too much.
Not in New York.
My Southern California friends who are watching this are not going to be too happy that I use the word hella. But yeah, I think that just feels like something that's important to mention too, is like the work should feel satisfying.
That's great.
And let it be about the process too. You know, like, even if you just write a little ditty and then you stick it in your drawer and you don't even revisit it, or you revisit it like 3 years from now, that's cool too, because you're creating and you're getting that ish out, you know?
Yeah, and we've heard this before about not being afraid to fail, or not being afraid to write something that's just crappy. Like, we can't be censoring ourselves even before we start. And especially while you're doing it, it's like, oh, this is crap. Like, if you're saying that to yourself, it's not like Nick said, it's not fun. I want to enjoy it. I want to do it. I want to actually have fun putting something on the page that, you know, might never happen, but I'm having a good time doing it, and I want to do it, you know, and I can set that aside, like you said, Giovannie, and then maybe pull it out someday, or maybe not, but it's a way that I can learn. So that's really cool. What other things do you feel like for filmmakers, for people who are trying to get their work out there, like, what would you tell your younger self, things that you wish you did different? I always like asking, like, I don't know if you want. I know you both had small budgets and short amount of time to film your shorts, but what would you have done different if you could have, or what would you tell your former self how from what you know now as a filmmaker?
I used to, and I still do, I run around with a group of male filmmakers and stunt guys, right? And I was always impressed about how they were fearless in putting themselves in like the lead roles and like, and like just going out and be like, my idea is brilliant and I'm gonna do it, I wish that I didn't question myself so much and just started putting my stuff out there. So if I was going to say anything to my younger self, it would be like, your ideas are just as valid, and you can put yourself in the lead role. You don't have to ask somebody's permission. You don't have to be prettier or skinnier or have to do more things. Just go and do it, and you will flounder and you may fail, but you will pick yourself up and you will learn from that experience.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I think I relate to a lot of that just in the idea of pursuing your idea and knowing that it's important to you, and then therefore it's valuable and meaningful. I'm still sort of learning. I'm still my younger self in a lot of ways. I'm still right, like still sort of figuring out what works for me. I wouldn't change anything. I think I'm really proud of sort of the trajectory. I would, honestly, very similar to Giovannie, like just trust the process more. You know what I mean? Like, I think that one thing that I tend to do is I try to rush something. And I think that what I'm realizing is the process, whether you're in pre-production, whether you're in production, whether you're in post, whether you're like at any phase of the process, it's always great to just like take a breath, think about it, and make a decision. It'll just always be more informed the more like resourced and like grounded you are. And I think sometimes like the creative process can feel so intense and scary and world ending. And I think now that we're like truly in a what feels like world ending scenario, it's given like a lot of perspective of just like, okay, well, the world, I guess, has ended. So how are we doing now? Where are we in all of our processes? So that's been something that I've been sort of thinking a little bit about, and trying to add some positivity to what sort of fear does exist.
Yeah.
Trust the process. Is there anything like, what does that look like when you talk about trusting the process? Do you feel like your ability to like self-talk, is it like you're like who you say yes to? Have you ever felt like maybe I'm taking somebody into this group that I feel like I have to because they have something I don't have, but they're really not fun to work with? Is there anything like specifically you might be able to share that you've learned along the way in that way of trusting the process? And then I got another question. I'll save that. Go ahead. Anything that comes to mind about like how you might trust the process?
One of my dear friends who was in the artist residency with me earlier that I mentioned, where I did the dance piece, her name's Alicia. Alicia is an amazing visual artist and documentary filmmaker, and she just makes great work. And she one time told me something that I just have valued so intently, which is like, it's too early to self-edit. And I think that the self-editing process can sort of irk itself into every part of our processes. And I think the more I think about it, like I sometimes think it's like, it's never right to self-edit. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I think that like, well, let's actually not go that broad, because of course there's the good times to self-edit. But let's say in terms of our creative process, sometimes being creative allows us to go to places that sometimes don't require editing and require us to like really just delve deeper. Of course, there is a time to kind of come back to it and see what serves us, what doesn't serve us, what feels right, what doesn't feel right. But I've really held that when I'm in early phase of development on a project, where I feel like I'll like write a line of dialogue and be like, well, that's dumb. And then I'll be like, whoa. Like, okay, like, let's just keep going and see where this goes. Because I think sometimes, something that feels right might come through the process of just moving forward. So shout out to Alicia and that idea of, you know, recognizing when something may be too early or not the right time to self-edit in the creative process.
That's a good one. I like that. Giovanni, anything you want to add to that?
I've actually been trying to live my life by intuition more. Because of the whole cult thing, I haven't trusted my gut a lot, and I've been waiting for somebody to tell me, yes, this is right, this is wrong, you know? So trying to like really tap into like my own, like, oh, no, this doesn't feel good to do. Yes, this makes my heart sing, you know, and I'm trying to like go towards this makes me feel open. This makes me feel like alive. And I'm going to go towards that, even with like people in my, you know, vicinity, especially in Hollywood, because Hollywood is like a lot about smoke and mirrors. And it took a while to find like my tribe of people. And it was just really important to me, like, okay, this idea, this is fun, and I want to follow this. So I'm trying to like live more that way.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah. For any person trying to do their work in an industry where sometimes it feels like you don't know who's being real, I think the grounding of your crew, your tribe is so important. Those people that you love, that you trust, that love you, that will give you the constructive feedback without tearing you down. We'll give you that advice about not self-editing. We'll tell you, encourage you to keep going. I think that is like so huge. And that's why just a shout out to our Brave Maker community. I love all the filmmakers and our people who are our volunteers, because it does feel like we're trying to create that. And I know there's a lot of labels that get put on Hollywood, and they're there for a reason. There's some good, you know, stereotypes that are real, but there's also, I think, a lot of people who are like you, who are just who want to tell good stories, who are good human beings, who are creative, and yes, we want to pay our bills, but we're not in it to be famous. We're just in it because we can't do anything else. This is like, you know, so important. So thanks to everybody who's tuning in. We got a couple more minutes. I want to say hi to Jenny. Thanks for showing us some Purple Heart love.
Hi, Jenny.
If anybody else has a question, now's the time. We got a few minutes here for the rest of this live chat. Jessica says, which actor or actress would you love to work with next?
Are we talking dream?
Yeah, dream.
Like I had any budget in the world that I could work with and pay people. Oh my God. Okay, so Helen Mirren is on the top of my list, and Shirley MacLaine. I love them so much, and I also love James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain. Like those are my like peoples. And then, you know, like I love Taraji, and I love, you know, like I love, but like those are the top 5 that came up to my head. You know,
so tag them in the comments and see if we can get them to come to Giovanni's next film. There you go. Okay. Nick, what about you?
That's an amazing list. The name that came to mind, there's several people, but the name that comes to mind, that has come to mind for a while, that is kind of just someone I'm obsessed with, is I love Judy Greer. I think she's so talented, and I think, to your point about stereotypes, like she's kind of always played this like quirky, funny best friend, but I think she has such an amazing sort of opportunity and such great chops that I would love to either work with her or like do something with her, because she also just seems like really incredible.
Yeah. Can I add one more? Because I have been binging The Office as my my self-isolation time. And I started from season 1. I'm now in season 6, but I love Amy Ryan. Amy Ryan's amazing. Yeah. Anyways. That's
good. Right on. Well, hey, if you are trying to connect with these two amazing, lovely filmmakers, you can go find Giovannie at GeoSpirit2 on Instagram. Get on your phone right now and find her up, dial her up, say hi, appreciate the work that she's doing, follow along, as well as Nick is N. Borenstein. Same thing, you can follow him. And we would appreciate it if you would just tell people about their work and share their links on your social media. They're both amazingly public right now, so you can share it, send it to a friend, have some conversations, do a little quarantine watch party with these 3 films. Thank you so much for being on this online chat with me today. It's so good to see your faces. Anything else you want to say? Final words, final comments?
Thank you, Tony, for creating this space and creating a film festival that does highlight like social justice stuff, because I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I echo that. This has been such a treat. I love this. It's been fun to get dressed up and do an event.
You got dressed up all the way?
So.
Did you get dressed up
I'm
all the
wearing
way?
jeans. I'm fully wearing jeans, which is kind of big. I was just talking to my boyfriend about how like we were both like we haven't worn jeans in like months at this point. And as I put them on, I was like, okay, let me put on some jeans. It feels formal, and I thank you for giving me that.
Hey, well, let's do it again. Again, huge shout out to these two. If you are not on our email list, you need to go to bravemaker.com/buzz. You will get weekly links all through Shelter in Place. Since we can't have, thank you, Giovanni. Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Since we can't have our, yes, do it. Come on, I'll move you around. There you go.
Okay.
There. Yeah. Too good. We are so grateful for all of you who are our patrons and our audiences. Thanks so much for coming on and signing up and spreading the word. This link will be up forever now, so you get to see these beautiful faces forever. We want to follow their careers, and hopefully a year, 2 years from now, whenever your features and next shorts come out, please share them with us. But we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we can't do this work without you. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, we're Bravemaker Film Fest, and we're not charging for any of these things. So if you want to support filmmakers, go to our webpage. You can donate. You can see these fiscally sponsored projects that we're working on. And finally, if you want to come and be a part of Bravemaker as a filmmaker, you can apply to be one of our fiscal sponsees. That's on our website as well. So I'm going to end the podcast, but you two stay on so we can have one more final word. And thanks to everybody else for watching. See you soon. Brave stories change the world. You are the story. Beautiful.